An adventure fit for thrill seekers. A top-notch writing from the master storyteller. Searching for the brutal truth has never been this witty. Peculiar detectives rise above crisscross killings. Thrilling narrative, exciting unfolding of the truth. Clever, entertaining, and never predictable. A meticulously written mystery tale. A riveting tale of crisscross murders told in humorous fashion. Fetching Fiona and the sketching detectives solve the crisscross murders by Jack McCormack. Available now.
Yes. Welcome to another great show of APN TV Media. We got a lot in store for you today. As a matter of fact, we have an awesome guest. Okay, we have a little affiliation with California, which is kind of cool. And we'd like to welcome back to Michigan, and especially here in Monroe, Michigan. Yay! His name is, I would say he's not only he's an author, but he's a cook and or should I say cook writer? We're going to talk about this. Cook writer. Yes.
Well, it's more like a folk tale combined with cooking books as well.
Interesting. I like that. Interesting. And of course, Bob, his name is Eric Johnson.
Correct. And
the book's title is Tales from the Cook.
All right.
Let's hear it. Tales from the Cook. Anything in the politic arena?
Well, they had.
I know. So no, head on. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that surprised me. But yeah. Well, no, Trump's still being attacked, and they're going to keep attacking him. Doesn't matter what he does, they're going to attack him because the people want him out of office. Not the people. The what do they call it? But the people behind the scenes want him out of office because he wants to do things for the people, not to help the shadow government, and they don't like him. So, yeah, he's going to keep being attacked. Doesn't matter what he does.
New people coming out the woodworks now, especially after he did the.
Well,
they supposed to did the sanctions, but now they're trying to point the finger and say.
If you look, if you look at the things he's being attacked for. He hasn't done anything anywhere near as bad as what Bill Clinton did, or Ted Kennedy, Ted Kennedy did some things with women that they never talked about that were a lot worse than anything. He did stuff that was even worse than Bill Clinton, but
he came in.
Nobody talked about it.
Yes, but the difference is he came into office with that baggage. He came into the office. I mean, no matter what he said on there, you heard everything and the crazy stuff, and yet we elected him.
Well,
I mean, I'm not. We elected him because we knew that he was going to bring chaos in the first place.
Right.
We knew that he was going to disrupt it. Besides the cliche of drain the swamp.
Yeah.
We didn't care about that. We wanted to see what actually was going on in the political arena. We wanted to see what's going on.
I did want to see him drain the swamp.
Yes, well, his draining.
A swamp.
The only thing that's scary to me is that he's firing really serious officials and hiring people like in Hollywood, extras, actors, people that's not even they're not even they're not even that classification. I mean, except for the new Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. But other than that,
I think he knows when the person's talented and when he isn't. So, and you don't need the training for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, but according to the laws, I mean, I hate to say the word treason, but if you look at the laws about that, there's one little thing about when overtake, you could easily, and I'm going to tell you how crazy this is, okay? Everybody gather this, how crazy it is. I don't want to throw it out there too much, but I want you to think about this. Anytime you replace someone, okay, one after the next, one after the next, one after the next, that's less qualified to not qualified inside of a government system, it's like the military. If you place somebody who don't know what they're doing, you're liable to get, shot out there, okay? Or ran over by a tank, or whatever the case may be. All right? If you put somebody inexperienced, you got to be trained to be in a certain position. But if everybody's already in those positions and is stabilized, and you remove that person every time, then what happens is they call it like a hostile takeover. Or you could call it a secretive takeover. I say it that way. Because you're putting everybody in those positions that has no experience, nothing, and you got chaos. And anytime a system is chaos, what do they call it when you do a takeover? Do anybody know? What do you do? What do they call it when it's a takeover?
It's called a coup.
Thank you. A coup. Isn't that kind of weird? It's bizarre in America.
Well, and in fact, there's a book called Silent Coup, and it was about Nixon being replaced with Watergate. And that was all set up. Nixon had nothing to do with that.
Very good. So I'm not knocking it, because I even voted for him to myself, and to be honest with you. I mean, it was crazy, but him coming in and the women thing, and still he got more women stuff. But you know what's funny is, okay, the funny part is that before he came in office, everybody was playing golf with him, Democrats and Republicans. Everybody was partying with him. Everybody had a good old time. Then all of a sudden, after the Obama thing, when he got clowned after paying $1,000 for a plate, he got clowned. He ended up getting roasted. And he's in the audience. He's getting roasted. He turns around, becomes president, and then now all of a sudden we're like, no, you dirty, no good. You was messing with her and that person. And he's like, this was back before I even thought about being president. But so you can't just bring old baggage.
No.
Not for the person. If you did something in the past, you can't use that to try to destroy somebody into the future or to the present.
But they're doing it. But it's, they're using it. They're throwing everything at them they can think of. Anything they can find, and even if they have to make it up.
Does he have gum on his shoes? That's what I thought. Okay, and we'll be right back
The world's greatest treasure trove sits in Vatican City, Europe's most famous locale. Because the Vatican is a walled, closely guarded fortress, everyone believes it is impossible to rob. Until now. From the author who brought readers the compelling thrillers Satan's Stronghold, Jericho's Trumpet, The Armageddon Virus, and God's Domain, comes a suspenseful thriller that will keep readers turning pages. A powerful Vatican cardinal is obsessed with becoming the next pope. A young idealistic priest discovers a Vatican conspiracy, plunging he and beautiful Italian gymnast Darlene Aldonzo into a whirlpool of danger and desperation. American jewel thief Craig Reynolds has robbed jewelry establishments and wealthy chateaus all over Europe, aborting the most sophisticated security systems and vanishing without a trace. Now, Craig Reynolds will methodically manipulate the players and events to make the impossible possible. He will rob the Vatican. But will he sacrifice Darlene Aldonzo, the woman he initially deceived? but now loves. Find out in this action-filled thriller novel by Robert Kelland, Rob the Vatican, available on ebook at www.robertkelland.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Yes, welcome back. Yes, and here we have Eric Johnson.
Very good to meet you, Steve.
Welcome. Yes, great to meet you. How did you cook?
I started cooking when I was 6. So,
wow.
Yeah. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and my mom was boiling the turkey carcass, as many people do. And I was curious as to what she was doing in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And I asked her if I could help season what she was doing. So I went to the spice cabinet and I grabbed the turmeric and the cardamom and cinnamon, and I made my first curry. And it was just something that came naturally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You've been doing it ever since?
Ever
well,
since.
Pretty much?
Yeah.
Yes. Your book, Tales from the Cook. You know what? It's very, very interesting. Tell us a little bit about the book. Just start off.
Tales from the Cook. The idea came about many years ago when a friend of mine's mom, she makes these pickles. They're absolutely fantastic. And so I asked for the recipe, and of course I was denied because it was a family secret. And so I pushed. I said, "Come on, you guys got to let me. You got to give me the secret for this." Anyway, the answer is that she watered her pickling cucumbers with vodka when she was growing them, and that's what made her pickles so good. And I thought, that's amazing. That's wonderful. So
yes,
there's got to be more stories out there like this. I was just absolutely tickled to death by it. So after doing a lot of research, as I went through, I read Andrew Lang, I read Brothers Grimm, I read Mother Goose. I just started digging through folklore.
Okay.
And so, because I was looking for like old stories, right, on
yes.
That were food themed, and I didn't find too many. So I figured I should start writing them.
Brothers Grimm, huh?
Right.
Now that's interesting.
Well, you look at like Hansel and Gretel, and so the witch wants to eat them, and they're lured with a house made of candy, and there's nursery rhymes about peas porridge, hot peas porridge, cold. There's 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. What was the pie like? Did they use pheasant? Was it really a dish?
You mean tell me you were actually dissecting it?
Oh, I was dissecting it, yeah. Because I wanted to know, because at the time of having my children,
yes,
kids are picky. They don't like to eat. But how could I make it interesting for them to, eat? I mean, let's make a story around broccoli. Let's make a story around asparagus, Let's encourage them through storytelling to eat, a larger variety of foods. And so I started writing. And this is my second book, Tales from the Cook, a second helping. The first one's entitled Tales from the Cook, and I have a third one coming out. It's called Tales from the Cook Back for Thirdsies. And that's being edited right now.
You know what? Actually, and I should mention that. Okay, what we have today is actually, the book is titled Tales from the Cook, a Second Helping. I encourage you to, to check out the stores and today's, online booksellers. I was checking. Matter of fact, I was looking at it on Amazon earlier. Later, earlier last night, around 1:00 in the morning.
That's early.
1 or 1:30. Yes, and I had was checking it out again, and I was going, you know what, this is interesting. But I'm glad you said that. There's 2 books.
There's 2.
There's 2 books.
Yeah.
Tales from the Cook.
Right.
Okay, I have the second one. Is the first one in relation to this one, or the 2 different stories?
Oh, no, it's going to be a whole series. I'm doing 25 recipes with 25 stories in each book. And I've already started working on my 4th. So.
Okay, then, you know what? Then I know you gave me part of it, but what is culinary folklore?
Well, it's food-themed folklore. So if you were looking at folklore, where a story rises out of a community just naturally, I thought that I would create some stories that could be read and passed down and shared with friends while you cook these foods that I have in here, like my hollandaise sauce or the sauerkraut recipe, or the first story in there is called Titus Custardus. It's about a Roman dolia carta, a young man who worked the laundry in ancient Rome, who wanted to escape a life of laundry toil, which everybody does. He joins the Roman legion, where he ends up saving his life by making custard.
Now, was there really a Titus Custardus?
No, there was not.
Okay. I know there was a Pliny the Elder, but that was about the only name I really recognized as far as from history.
Well, Pliny the Elder's fire roasted pork. He, being a naturalist, an admiral in the Roman Navy, the engineer of the rescue attempts of the people from Herculaneum and Pompeii during the eruption of Vesuvius. I thought he might have an ulterior motive, which would be for his fire roasted pork recipe. And he couldn't find coals that were hot enough to sear in the flavors in the meat. And so there was a duality to his rescue mission. And of course, we know that in 79 AD was the year that he died, because at that time, they didn't know what a pyroclastic flow was. So as the hot ashes come rolling down the mountain, they were originally called a plinoclastic flow. So that inspired me. It was cool. I love studying history, and I like to make up stuff about, what really happened behind the actual stories. I'll
tell you what, I want to continue. I want you to stay with that, and Bob, and give us a second. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Welcome back. Sorry about that. There were some more interesting things in the book, as well as we had some more guests come back on the show, or audience. I'm sorry, the audiences. So I would love the audience's input as well. But I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go and continue. Continue.
Oh, and about the creation of the stories and the history of the recipes.
But this still falls in culinary folklore.
Yes, because they're culinary folklore. In folkloristics, there's a thing called fake lore. It's where people actually make up folklore-like stories.
Yes.
And so technically, that's what I do, but they are within the genre of folklore.
Okay.
And so I'm taking history, I'm taking fact and fiction, and mixing them together.
Okay.
And creating these stories, not unlike the recipes that I make. I love food-themed stories.
But the recipes are real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I believe my mom still has the note from when my second grade teacher, she sent it home with me, asking why I was telling the class how to make hollandaise.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about, is it okay or is it safe that we can actually...
Yeah.
Very good. Very good, Bob. Because he has in his book, as we have seen, I mean, the stories are incredible, along with the, because I was kind of wondering, should we try out what's in it, the ingredients, to taste something?
Well, they look like they would taste very good, a lot of that stuff.
Is that Pliny's?
Pliny's fire roasted pork. Right.
Man, that sounds so good.
Well, it's got honey and red wine and fresh oregano and onions, and it's just a marinade. But when it's seared properly on hot coals, you get that little char on the outside of the pork. It's so delicious. I believe, in addition to studying up on Pliny the Elder's experience in Pompeii, there was a Roman sonnet I read, maybe it was my imagination, but I remember reading an old Roman sonnet about mixing honey and red wine and marinating your meat in it. And I thought, that's got to be good. So I tried it, and I came up with this recipe. And I've cooked it at least 50 times. So all the recipes in this book are tested time and time again. So the custard, I love custard. I make custard, a few times a year. But when I was making this book, I made it 20 times just to make sure that the recipe was A-okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But what age bracket is this book tailored for?
Well, from the time someone can read to the time they die. It's for everybody. The stories are humorous, they're informative, they're questionable in the respects that, is that guy telling the truth? I love tall tales, and a lot of them have, a lot of them are tall tales. I've liked the Monte Cristo Murders of Michigan. It's a classic story of an escaped mental patient on the run from the police. And it's about a cook who's out drinking late one evening, and he realizes that if he goes home and sleeps, he's probably going to sleep through his shift because he's out so late. So he decides to go into the restaurant in the middle of the night, get a head start on the breakfast prep for the morning crowd.
Yes.
And then when the second cook comes in, claims that he's feeling sick, and go home and sleep it off. But which, having worked in the restaurant business, I've seen people do that. So I was a sous chef for a number of years, and
really,
oh yeah, and I had a breakfast cook who did that once. So he's in my story now.
Oh,
yeah.
I know if you ever. My brother was Eric Hill. He sous chef. He used to work at the Taj Mahal. Yes, with the time with Trump and all them. My family worked with him. That's the kind of funny part about it. At the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City.
Right.
And then he went to teaching at the schools as a sous chef.
Yeah.
Or whatever you call it like that. I mean, he's been doing that forever, still doing it.
It's a labor of love. I mean, it's a lot of hours, and it's not easy work. But you know, you're making food. It's great. You can see a plate of food go out of the kitchen and get set down on a table and watch the people's faces light up, and they're like, oh, this, and they taste in that first bite. Then it's 30-second art because they devour the food, and it's really rewarding.
It's awesome. But you know, the funny part is I've noticed, like when you took me to the back. I mean, and you know, they make all the designs and all this stuff, and the food is just exquisite. But here's the one little I don't know, say it's a secret or not, but he told me. Do you act, because he doesn't eat he doesn't hardly eat anything.
Right.
Is that the same with you, or do you eat all the time when you're cooking?
Well, I do now, but
oh.
But when I was working in restaurants, because as you're tasting everything, you know, is this right? Is this right? Because
yes.
I would say, would you serve that to your mother, to my cooks? And they would say no, and I'd say, out, get out, you're fired. But the guys who really cared about the food and what it tasted like, you have to taste each and every dish. And so it's this constant tasting. And so you're not really eating any one thing, but you've eaten.
You've eaten, that's why. Yeah. That was interesting, yes. Yeah. Yes, and it's an art. It's an art to you. It's an art.
It is.
Yeah, we're enjoying the food that you're cooking,
right.
But it is an art.
Right.
And yes, now that is why we don't see cooks really eating. They are eating.
They are.
It's because they're constantly tasting it.
Right.
If a cook doesn't taste it, they're not really cooking, are they?
Right. No, you got to know what it tastes like. Otherwise, you don't know what it tastes like. And you're going to give it to somebody, you didn't taste this, you don't know what it's like. I don't want to eat it. I want to eat something that we know tastes good. Does it meet your approval? Would you serve this to your mother? That's the motto. Yeah. Back to the stories. The stories, that's what has turned into my real passion.
Yeah, I see you have I see every story you have, you generally have a picture that goes with it.
Yeah.
Is this you?
That is not me.
Or is that symbolization of you?
That's the symbolization of a chef.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But not with the go-to.
No, this is a recent.
That's pretty cool, though.
It's a recent addition.
Okay. It just happened to fall in that way.
Yeah.
Yes, your stories that you've written. Whoa.
Oh yeah, you can't show that one on TV.
Okay.
It looks like you know how to make drinks too.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had a drink recipe in there. And
working in restaurants for almost 20 years, you learn how to mix a few drinks.
So can we safely say on television? Can we safely say that it would the book be recommended? I mean, I do recommend this book actually, so I'm validating it. It's but I'm gonna validate it for ages 18,
I agree.
or say it's kind of safe, peculiar kids. Bob, when there's what's the age limit for drinking?
The age limit, well, you can't drink until you're 21 in Michigan.
Right.
There are other states where I think it's different. It used to be 18 in New York City.
Right.
I don't know, or in New York State.
I think it's 21 nationally.
I think it might have changed to 21 all over the country because it used to be, every different state used to be, well, I won't say every state was different, but there are a lot of states had different ages.
But what I'm saying is that it's a good book because I love the stories, and I kind of bypass the recipes as I'm reading. I mean, I was reading the recipes, but I didn't look at it in that manner. So what I wanted to know is because cooking, like the one I was just reading about, half for me, half for you. It's half for drinking a bottle of wine,
right?
But you drink half of it and then use the other half to cook with.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's my sense of humor. Take Julia Child.
Yes.
I believe it was Chevy Chase who did his Julia Child impression.
Yes.
So that's kind of stuck with me. I thought that was funny because a little wine for the sauce and a little wine for the cook, and this book truly is geared for people who know how to cook, who love to cook and to love to tell stories.
Very
so
good.
You bring your family over, bring your friends over, have a few cocktails, get together and cook a big meal together. Because
I'm sorry, I don't interrupt that way, but that's why on a safety net, that's why I wanted your readers, the viewers and readers, to understand that it can't be just for, to give the children and they read it, and especially the schools. See, there's.
Oh no, I wouldn't recommend giving that to not this book that I've written.
Well, there are certain schools where they do culinary cooking and stuff like that. Okay, and nowadays there are trade schools, trade schools even in high school. Okay, even in high school, but it's like basically knowing your limit in high school. Right. So we didn't want to suggest that anybody of a certain age to be able to look at this book and start creating it, and then they take a fictitious way actually to take it and take it from a fiction to a nonfiction and started drinking something that they shouldn't be doing. So,
well, I would never encourage that.
That's what I'm getting at. We're not trying to encourage. It's a great story. There's great stories in the book.
Yeah.
You're a great cook, great chef. I shouldn't just say cook. There's a big difference.
Anybody
can cook.
Yes.
But it takes, the experience to become a chef.
Yes. And all recipes have a story behind them.
Yes.
And so
that's what I was getting to.
That's where this goes.
The stories, you placed it behind the cooking. So was the cooking first and then the story? Or did you create the story and then create the cooking during the story?
For me, they came at the same time.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah. Well, the process of writing. I mean, the stories. I've written over 100 stories in this nature. So far, 75 have been good enough because you're not going to write a good story every time, because that just doesn't happen for anybody. I'll say, I need a story about this, and I'll start thinking about witches, or I'll think about werewolves. And I'll think about cheese, and I think, well, how could werewolves and cheese go together? And so,
go ahead, I'm listening.
Anyway, the stories, they come flooding in. Tales Cook number 3, I wrote all 35 stories, which 25 of it made it in about 3 weeks, because they just kept one after another. It's just this massive flow of creativity, and then I let it sit for 6 months, and then I go back and I read it, and I start editing, and I start testing the recipes as I'm editing the book. So, say this recipe needs more salt, this is an incomplete sentence, a comma here, a dash of salt there, I should make that 2 sentences instead of 1. So, it's a fun editing process.
Well, you did add your flavor and sense of humor in there, as well, which was great. And Bob,
have you ever considered writing a book that was all, let's say, desserts, or let's say all about fish recipes or something like that, instead of the
process for me? It doesn't really come that way. It's more of it's an impromptu, on the fly kind of thing. I get the idea, I follow it to its end, and usually when one idea pops up, 3 more come, and then I follow those, and I keep going and going and going, and make sure that I just let it flow. It's like when a musician, you can see them and they're doing a solo on the guitar, and they close their eyes, and they're getting into that what they call the zone. Sports players do it, long distance runners do it, writers get that zone too. And so that's a place where everybody wants to be.
In the zone.
In the zone.
Thank you. And I have to give some points on that one. In the zone. That's a place you just don't want to be disturbed.
Yeah, you just let it go, and wherever it takes you, you follow it. And it's a wonderful thing. And you chase after it. Once you get it, you always chase after it. So
that's good.
Yes, and let's see, we have another one. How is the story used in dietary and if I can believe I'm saying this right, Pedagogy.
Teaching. Well, getting back to the whole theme of this story or the book itself is that how does story influence food selection?
Okay, can you, just the audience is unsure what I'm sharing. Pedagogy is Pedagogy.
Yeah.
And it's teaching.
Yeah.
That's the meaning of it, it's teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what I like to do,
Yes.
so how can I get people to be encouraged to try things that they wouldn't normally eat? Sauerkraut. People go, sauerkraut, it's sour, I don't want to eat that. So
I'm a Philadelphia guy, Rich, but no, Monroe's 20 years now, yay, here
Right.
in Monroe, Michigan. So this is my home. This is definitely my home. But always had sauerkraut with hot dogs.
yeah, I love
Or
sauerkraut.
knockwushes and stuff like that.
Sauerkraut's wonderful. Some people are like, I'm not going to eat that because, And so I wrote a story about a girl going to camp, summer camp, and her parents don't want her to go hungry. So they send their jar of sauerkraut with her. And it's her experience of having to deal with, cabin mates and her jar of homemade sauerkraut that her parents tell her that they have to.
Homemade sauerkraut?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Woo.
Oh no, it's really easy and it's fun. It's a great experimentation in fermentation and watching lactobacilli turn sweet cabbage into something sour. And it's good. It's a really good recipe. I make homemade sauerkraut.
And if you go to the German American Festival in Oregon, Ohio, they sell plates of veal loaf, German potato salad, and sauerkraut. And oh, are they delicious.
Absolutely.
Anybody else
It's
in here?
such a good combination.
You like sauerkraut? You?
See?
You like sauerkraut. You don't like sauerkraut.
See?
Oh. Sauerkraut? You like sauerkraut? What about you?
And why do you know why where the insult term for a German kraut came from?
From sauerkraut.
Because they ate sauerkraut to prevent scurvy.
It's a good source of vitamin C.
Yes, it is. Very good source. So it's got to be good for you if they ate it to prevent scurvy.
Yes, help prevent scurvy. Buy my book and make the recipe.
There you
Yes.
go.
Matter of fact, I'm going to give your son shout out to your family over here.
Hi, family.
And what about you with the sauerkraut? You paused. No, why?
I'm not really sure why. I haven't had it yet.
Oh, you haven't had sauerkraut yet?
Or have I? I can't really remember.
You won't eat it.
Things, but when it comes to me,
I'll read you the story again. Maybe you'll be influenced.
Read the story to That's a good one.
Well, that's
read a
it.
story to influence another art, another way of eating,
because
or another style of
the
eating.
thesis behind it is storying
Very
to
good.
influence food selection. So,
I like that.
yeah, I mean, you got to try something when you're a parent,
That still brings back your book is more like culinary art.
It is.
In a theatrical writing.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're fun stories.
Yes.
They're entertaining. The beauty of it is they're all short stories. They're between, in my first book, the shortest story is 254 words. And the longest one, I believe, is about 2,200 words in length. So it's about word economy. It's about being concise with your sentences and getting a message across. And so
your specialty? That, do you particularly like, let's say, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, any really favorites in there that you just like to throw together?
Well, as a chef and a person who's been cooking for, 40 years, when I'm in a restaurant environment, I stick to the menu, and then you have your creative outlet as running the specials. But when I'm at home, I never make the same thing twice. I make it similar, but I'm always trying a little more of this, a little less of that. And so my family has their favorites. My wife, she asked me, "Oh, could you please make that again?" I'm like, "I'm never going to make this again. This is the one time you're going to have it, And so it's just not, because it's all inspirational. I could move a chair away from the table and go, "That's it, more Parmesan," And it's just this creative thing. I can't say that I'm going to stick to the recipe. Yeah.
Yes. And got a couple more questions for you. One of the questions is culinary influences. Who are your culinary influences?
Julia Child, Madeline Common.
You mentioned that, didn't you?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
no.
you said Julia. I don't think you mentioned Julia Child before.
I didn't. I mentioned her earlier in the interview when I was saying, well, because you were talking about half a bottle for the cook and half a bottle for the sauce. She altered the way Americans cook. And so that she had a great influence. She was someone to pay attention to. Just good cook. I watched the old cooking shows of hers. Very, very intuitive and instructional and helpful. And I think when I was learning to cook, I watched her shows, and it was an inspiration. I'm like, oh, I see how she does that, and she did what she set out to do, was teach people how to cook better. And so, yeah, Madeline Common for her in my life, her ½ ounce of water per egg yolk for hollandaise sauce. I used to use 3/4 of an ounce, but then because of her, I said, I'll give it a try. And so I went from 3/4 of an ounce of water to ½ an ounce of water when making hollandaise.
Okay.
It improved my sauce. I'm like, I never knew, but she was another influence. Escoffier, Auguste Escoffier, the father of modern cuisine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then do you have any anything for the because this is treasured. I love it. It's uniquely put together. So you had to excuse some of the things that went woo. So, but it's uniquely put together.
If you're a person who loves kooky stories, and you like to cook, this is the book for you.
That was the next question. What do you tell people when they think your food choice is weird?
What do I tell them when I think their food, or me telling them, or them telling me? Well,
let's do this way. Let's do both. Let's do both. If somebody asks you and they said, you know what, because some of the things you put together seems weird, but you're an artist.
Right.
Okay, you're an artist.
Right.
And of course you probably heard that from time to time, because I've heard it down the road.
Well, intermingling story with cooking, I take the lesson from Oscar Wilde, who said it doesn't matter what the story's about, but was it well written? And so I take that and I say, well, it doesn't matter what the ingredients is, but was it well prepared? Yeah. Right. Does it taste good?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know chefs, everybody's talking in the same language.
Yeah.
In the same, there's very few, they don't eat or they don't taste it, like you say, they have to go because they're not, they're just cooking.
Right.
They're not taking it too hard in their, especially for those of us that loves to eat, because I sure love to eat. But I love going to.
I love to cook,
yes, Dolce Vita and certain places that have some, oh my gosh, exquisite with, you can get fried shrimp with all these decorations over, but the decoration has a taste to it. So, you know what, by the way, How about this? Because as I was reading, I thought about something, and I said, wait a minute. When you're putting some, I feel like one of those Hansel and Gretel now. Before you're about to get eaten, become a pretzel or or a cookie or what's his name with the guy was created. I mean, he was turned into a cookie. What? Oh, come on! We saw him on Shrek. The gingerbread man. Thank you. The gingerbread man.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
And the gingerbread has a certain taste, but when you put these flavors over it, like the different color icing, it adds an extra taste, right?
Right. It's layers of story and layers of flavor.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a layered cake or a layered cookbook.
I'm not trying to give the story away because there's certain parts of the story that's like, whoo, and I have certain ones in my mind right now.
Right.
But I encourage you to, before you cook, I want you to understand the story, okay? Even though it's fiction and nonfiction. The fiction part is the story. The nonfiction part is the cooking.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got fictionist characters who are, remember he said the werewolf and all that. So we have fictionist characters who's creating an actual
recipe. Right. Well, the first story, Titus Custardus, he uses it to save his life because he's been taken prisoner by the Germans during a battle at the Teutoburg Forest because they want to, they want to uncivilized Germany from the civilized Romans, as they say in the story. And he says, well, I can turn eggs into gold. And Herman the German specifically, well, that's what his name was, if you read the history books. But he says, well, no, you can't do that. Eggs are pickled along with the cabbage. And so he bears down on him with his axe because he wants to torture and kill the evil Roman. And so Titus says Yule, which of course is, Christmas or a holiday at the time. And so Herman spares him a moment to listen to him because he knows something of his culture. And so Titus explains how he can turn eggs into gold. And so Herman in turn says, he looks through the ranks of his men looking for Loki, thinking this has got to be a trick. There's no way you can do this. And Titus convinces him of this recipe that he has to turn eggs into gold. And
quickly, what is your favorite story in the book?
Oh, that's a good question. I've written so many. I think the last story in the book, well, that's good too. It's hard to tell. I mean, I love them all equally because they're like your children. You work with them.
Very
good. Again, Titus the Custardus. The story in here about the fairies who steal the saucier because they love his hollandaise sauce. That's another one. I love the Monte Cristo murders of Michigan about the escaped mental patient. Well,
who cooks also?
Who cooks? Well, it's actually he comes and kills the cook in the book, but oh, I'm giving away spoilers.
Oh my goodness! It's
anyway,
insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
They're all fun stories.
All right, I know we've run out of time and everything, everybody. But Bob, anything?
No, it's an excellent book, an excellent read, fun stories, and good recipes with it. So that's tough to beat.
Yeah, I thought about trying out a few until you mentioned the one about half a bottle of wine.
Well, you don't have to drink a half a bottle of wine.
I'm old man. I can drink half a bottle of wine. I'm okay with that.
You could do it without eating anything. Just.
Oh, well, you can do that too. And then you just start sloshing everything together. Huh?
Yeah.
I'd rather wait till afterwards.
Of course, the cooking might not be so good after that, but that's another story.
When I read the story, Okay, let's see what's at the table after read the story, right?
Yeah.
Just think about it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You grab this book.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it would be kind of cool. Like they say the coffee table approach about books. Let's make this like a dinner table approach about books. Before the dinner starts, you know, he gets everything ready. He's already have it pre-prepared. Say we all had it all pre-prepared.
Right.
Okay. And after we read that story, then we know what our dinner's going to be.
There you go.
Then we'll eat. Yes. And leave the bottle alone till after we read, after we get our dinner, then we can tip the bottle over.
That sounds good.
All right. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad to have you on the show. I want you to come back again. As a matter of fact, I want to come back to the other ones too as well.
Okay.
Definitely. The book is titled, this one here is titled, and I'm glad you said that they're your children are your babies. So I always tell everybody a manuscript is your child.
Yeah.
And it depends on you and where you take your child to.
Yeah.
You know, what school to take your child to. So
I mean,
I'm very proud of you to say that.
I read the stories to my children.
Yes.
You know, he's practically a teenager. So, you know.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
You plan on being a cook like your dad? And a writer?
Maybe. I have a great imagination, so maybe.
Very good. Interesting. Interesting. And you're the silent one. There we go. She smiled. That's her answer.
That's it.
Yes. What conservative right here. You have anything to say? Anything? You sure? Oh, we're proud of your father. He did a great job with this book. A great job.
Thank you.
And again, this is Tales from the Cook, a season. I'm sorry. I'm already got into it. I'm going to say a second helping.
It is a second helping. That's book number 2.
Very good. You got me thinking, I know where I'm going after this. Okay, Tales from the Cook.
A second
helping. This is by Eric Johnson. All right. So, again, yes.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And everybody, you know what? Anything, Bob?
Like I said, it's an excellent book with great recipes. You should have a good time with that book.
All right. And everybody, have a blessed night, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. Thank you. Yeah.
There's a place inside my mind unseen. Dreams of you and I that just can't be. But I can keep them safe and locked away inside. In a perfect world where I control it, give me your heart there and I would hold it. But I know that just can't be reality. But please, don't you wake my daydream, 'cause it's so real it seems. Maybe someday I'll get my head from the clouds, but for now I'll just daydream. If you said to jump, then I will do it. Right into the fire and walk straight through it. And if you knew, I bet that's just what you would say. I guess the only thing for me to do is never let you know just how I'm feeling, 'cause I don't want to know if you don't feel the same. It's a shame. Don't you wake my daydream, 'cause it's so real it seems. Maybe someday I'll get my head from the clouds, but for now I'll just daydream. Daydream. them safe and locked away inside. But don't you wake my daydream. Oh, so real it seems. Maybe someday I'll get my head from the clouds, but for now I'll just daydream. Don't you wake my daydream.